No way that Joseph Smith could have possibly known. So how did the Mulekites get over here? We know that there was another voyage in the Book of Mormon, but how did they get here? Who did they come with?
Every single current in that area favors a ship to land in North America.
I'm spending money like I just got paid. $100 bills, tell them keep the change. Come on.
The Des Moines Rapids and this Phoenician expedition is the most compelling argument you've made thus far.
Yeah, pop a bottle, about to make it rain. Let me give you something now to celebrate. Come on.
This ship was able to make it to North America, and that shows us that this is
And if
possible.
you're wondering why I move the way I do, I just feel so good.
Mulekites literally took their ship up the Mississippi River as far as they could go until they couldn't take the ship any further because it got too shallow. That's where they parked the ship, and that's where they established Zarahemla, which is where the Lord said in section 125 of the Doctrine and Covenants that actually there's Zarahemla.
This is a seminary lesson right here. The following is an episode of Ward Radio and does not represent the thoughts or the opinions of KHTS, its owners, or any of its affiliates, nor does it represent the official opinion of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. With that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the program. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I'm your host, Cardinellis. Today I'm joined in the studio by Rod Meldrum and Bril Hernandez.
Hello.
As well as in the shadows by Bodyguard Ed. Ed, how's it going, brother?
Dandy.
All right, excellent. So anyway, today we're going to be reacting, giving some commentary, okay, to our dear friends over there at Scripture Central, and a really cool and interesting video that just came out. I swear Siri is listening to me talking to you Heartlander people, because all of a sudden I got a recommendation titled The Direction of Nephi's Ocean Voyage right here. There was a very clever and cool and hip and smart YouTube short done by our friend, what's her name again? It's Ripley. What is it again?
Rapley.
Rapley.
Well, okay,
excellent.
yeah, it's probably emphasis on the first syllable, but it's not
What if that's
Rapley.
Neil Rapley's daughter?
Yeah.
I have absolutely no idea. So anyway, I know she pumps out a lot of content on behalf of Scripture Central, and here she took an alternate theory to yours of the ocean crossing from the Horn of Africa and over the Atlantic currents, and making some bold statements about Lehi making his journey across the Pacific, in the same direction that we saw on the seminary cards when I went to seminary in the late 90s and early 2000s and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. There was a little card that they printed out, and I remember that was made out of plastic and it was super flippy floppy, and you could mark your scriptures. You could mark your scriptures by running your little red pencil over the top of it, and that's what I used to mark my scriptures. And it had the infamous map of the Book of Mormon voyage from the Old World to the New World, and it basically stated they landed on the West Coast. And I know some people have said that Joseph Smith and Parley P. Pratt and early founding fathers had specific claims as to that landing as well. So anyway, we're just going to react to her video and see what she has to say about that. And then you guys can lose your temple recommends in real time, responding to her, you know what I'm saying? Responding to her and telling her where she went wrong. All right. So anyway, here we go. 1 minute and 21 seconds of West Coast philosophy of Lehi's voyage. Go.
All right, if you have a stake in the game of Book of Mormon geography, you may want to watch this video to the end. I've gotten a couple questions this week asking about which way Nephi sailed to the New World. Did he sail west through the Atlantic Ocean or east through the Pacific Ocean? Sorry.
Okay, well, we definitely have a stake in the video, so yes. We shall continue. Let's go.
The picture's flipped. I don't know how to change it. But what we do know is that Lehi likely traveled through the western coast of Arabia until he reached Bountiful at the coast, which is likely along present-day Oman. If Lehi traveled west through the Atlantic Ocean, he would have had to go all the way down, hugging the coast of Africa before embarking on the open ocean to land. Who knows? However,
okay, wait. Now we'll just stop right there for a second.
Okay. Yeah.
Did she steel man your theory that if he came out from Aqaba, out of the Red Sea, Lehi, according to your theory, to make it to North America, would have had to go down the Cape of Good Hope off the East Coast and then come around the bottom of the tip up the West Coast until the currents change before you get to the Canary Islands, and then basically take what was basically the old slave ship route, the old, not the Gulf Stream, I can't remember the name of the current, but it's one of the most powerful currents in the Atlantic, and it actually swooshes you away from Africa and points you towards North America, and that's your guys' claim, right? So did she do a good job of effectively steel manning your claim?
Okay, yeah. Basically, she's saying that they left from Oman. We would agree with that. I think that's the most likely place for the Land Bountiful area, and then sailing down the east coast of Africa.
Okay, so anyway, and it's so funny. She says, and then landing. Well, we don't know. Moving on. And so it's like in the back of her mind, she's like, I don't want the Heartlanders catching this. You know what I'm saying? And now all of a sudden we're doing a reaction.
Yeah, okay.
And I say we as in us. I'm not saying I'm a Heartlander yet, bro. You need to wine and dine me like Scripture Central does.
Yeah.
So no, I'm just kidding. So
we don't have that kind of money.
Anyway, here we go.
Hey, real quick on going along the coast of Africa, I don't see that as a problem. If you were to take the Pacific Ocean, you would probably want to do the same thing. You'd want to stay as close to land, or maybe not want to stay as close to land, but staying close to land, hugging the land all along the Pacific or Atlantic would be a reasonable thing to do.
Well, also my only problem with the whole idea now that I've never really considered until pretty much this moment is the Star Wars problem. Like, if you're really going to say that they crossed the Indian Ocean, they would have had to have dodged the Indian Peninsula and then dodged like all of Malaysia, the Philippines, Papua New Guinea, all of those islands above Australia. And what are they doing? Like Han Solo going through the asteroid field, like trying to avoid every other island. You know what I'm saying?
In slow motion.
Exactly. So it's like, okay. It seems that actually alone kind of makes me think, okay, maybe they did go down the coast of Africa. But anyway, let's see what she has to say. Keep going.
Who knows? However, the Book of Alma indicates that Lehi's party actually probably landed on the west coast of the New World. Because in Alma 22, it says that the Lamanites lived in the west by the seashore, which is the place of their father's first inheritance. Or in other words, this is where Lehi's family first settled when they reached the New World, on the west coast. So in order to land on the west, researchers have hypothesized that Lehi and his family may have traveled east through the Pacific Ocean to land on the west coast of who knows where.
Okay, so this is the origin. You're breathing, you're sighing all heavy already. You're like, oh, geez,
There's a lot to unpack here.
There's so much to unpack.
Oh my! You guys sound like woke scolds. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't believe how insensitive this commentary is. That was so problematic. There's so much to unpack here. You know what I'm saying? So anyway,
I'm gonna need therapy after this.
Like, what is this? A trip to the Bahamas? So anyway, she just claimed, and we want to steel man her position as well. Okay, she just claimed that the Book of Alma claims that they landed on the western shores.
A west coast, right.
A west coast. Okay, so you don't have to do the whole deep dive right now, but do you take issue with that claim before I finish the rest of the video?
I do, because so she's saying that it is implausible that Lehi could have gone down the east coast of Africa. Right? Is that what we're all understanding?
Well,
she's
it's
saying
more plausible that they went this way.
Well, she's saying the Book of Alma says they didn't. So, are you aware of what scriptures in the Book of Alma would prohibit this idea of going down the east coast of Africa and Xing your guys' theory?
It's just the basically what the situation is that it's that they, in order to get from Oman to the west coast. Obviously, that doesn't work to go across the Atlantic. So for a Mesoamerica promotion organization like Scripture Central, they're gonna try to make that actually work. And unfortunately, it was them that the History Channel got in touch with when they did the documentary Who Really Discovered America, and they actually take the route that she's talking about right here, going through the Indian Ocean and crossing the Pacific Ocean, and that all resulted in the church getting a kick in the mouth. Or kick in the teeth, I should say, by the History Channel. They said their expert basically said, a ship could make it, but the ship would make it with dead people because there's no way you could store enough food and water for a voyage long enough to go across the largest ocean on the earth at nearly its widest point, which would be required to make a west coast landing on Central America. Right. My other thing is that it said it was a west coast landing. It didn't say it was a west coast of the United States landing. It was just a coast that was facing west. We think that the landing point of the Lehi voyage was actually right where the Phoenicia basically landed. And they didn't land specifically here, but basically the west coast of Florida.
Okay, you mean touching the Gulf of Mexico?
They went into the Gulf of Mexico and then landed
Well,
on the
now-
west
now-
coast of
now
Florida.
that
So
you've
they're on
mentioned-
the
okay,
west
I gotta
coast,
stop,
but it's not the same
Rod,
west coast.
Rod, you keep talking when I tell you to stop, and it's my studio, bro, because I don't want my audience to get confused here. You've mentioned the Phoenicia multiple times, and I got to put this up on the screen. The Phoenicia is a vessel that was built with hand tools and processes that were natural to 6th century BC Phoenicians that would have left the land bountiful in Oman at the same time that Lehi and Nephi and Samuel and Laman and Lemuel did. Okay, so this is a ship that was meant to be 100% historically accurate in terms of all of its construction and its crew and everything.
Right.
And they did this big voyage basically accidentally to the New World, where they left on the east coast of Africa, went down that coast, back up the west coast of Africa, but then that infamous current, they couldn't fight it, and it took them to where? Where'd they end up landing, Rod?
North America.
Landing in North America. Okay. So you're
Technically,
using...
they didn't land in North America. They just came to North America, and then but they refused to. There's a whole lot more story to this, but they were only 3 days away from making landfall in North America.
Okay, in colloquial terms, they made it to North America.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, when you mentioned the Phoenicia, you're actually mentioning this boat, and we can get back to it. I just want to make sure that we're steel manning the arguments.
Yes.
Of our sister from another mister. Right
And
here,
here's another thing is like when you look
Yeah.
at the ocean currents, you have the south equatorial current that takes you down the eastern side of Africa, and then that shoots you right into the Benguela current, which that takes you up the west coast, which then puts you right up along that next current of the north equatorial current, which is the one that takes you into North America. And so if Lehi was going to land on the west coast of the United States, then there's no way that could have happened going down Africa and down South America and across to North America, because you have all these cold currents that are right above Antarctica that are pushing everyone to the east. And so that would mean that if they left from that part of Africa, they would have to go due east the entire way and go through the North Pacific Ocean all the way across from Asia. So you're basically crossing from Africa through that Indian Ocean into the Asian, Japanese currents, and going across the biggest, largest ocean of the world. And you can do that if you have a triangle sail.
Yeah, a triangular sail.
A triangular
Well, that's
sail.
actually never even been shown that they could even do it with a triangle.
Yeah,
scale.
so there's just so many things that go against that potential.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Theory.
Okay. So we're going to keep going. Now, she did mention Alma 22, and we want to make sure that we steel man the opposition here. I'm just the referee. All right. So are you aware of any scriptures in Alma 22 that make the claim that it was the west coast of the United States of America? We're going to play this little clip once again really fast, just so we make sure we're steel manning the other side here, and everybody's on the same page and nobody's straw manning anybody else. But here's the argument right here again.
Landed on the west coast of the New World. Because in Alma 22, it says that the Lamanites lived in the west by the seashore, which is the place of their father's first inheritance. Or another.
Okay, so the scriptures say that the Lamanites lived in the west by the seashore, which is the place of their father's first inheritance. So you guys are saying that doesn't necessarily mean that it was on the west coast of the United States, but on the west coast of, not the panhandle, but the stick of Florida.
Right.
The body of Florida.
Okay, interesting. Okay, let's keep going and see what she has
Kind of
to
close
say.
to Clearwater Beach, actually.
Oh, you've even named the beach, huh?
Yeah.
We all better just buy up as much real estate in Clearwater as we can.
It's all gone. Believe me, brother.
You know when you go to like Louisville to Kentucky, I can't remember if it's Knoxville or Louisville, Kentucky, but that's where Cassius Clay / Muhammad Ali was from. So like there's 50 bars named like the Muhammad Ali instead of the watering hole, it's like the boxing bar or whatever. And like Muhammad Ali is all over everything because that's a big cultural thing.
The sun's ring.
In the Clearwater Beach, are there all of a sudden just going to be start start being like, the Lehite Hotel, Nephi's Nursery Babysitting Club or something like that, Should we start buying up property
There's
there?
actually some Native Americans, the Algonquin-speaking language groups of Native Americans, some of them have that as being their place where they came in. And they called this, actually, the Native Americans called North America Turtle Island. And in the Book of Mormon, it talks about that we are on an isle of the sea. So they kind of talked about it also as an island. But why Turtle Island? And the reason why is because when they first arrived here, they found sea turtles. And Clearwater Beach is one of the most prolific areas where the hatching of sea turtlets, little teeny turtles, are hatched there in Clearwater Beach. In fact, to this day, at certain times of the year, you can't turn on your lights there in Clearwater Beach because they don't want to disrupt the hatching of the little sea turtles as they hatch and go out to sea.
Okay, now I know
Pretty cool.
Now I know you're just full of pseudoscience and garbage because all of us in Los Angeles know
They're sea
that
turtles.
turtles hatched in the green ooze of the New York subway and sewer system and were named after all of the great artistic masters of the 1980s. I mean, in the 1980s of
And
the
the
Renaissance.
Asiatic- they were
painting.
Asiatic
And they
turtles.
loved pizza.
And they loved
absolutely.
pizza.
Yes, they
Exactly.
did.
So anyway, let's let her finish her video and then we'll see what you guys got to say.
In other words, this is where Lehi's family first settled when they reached the New World on the West Coast. So in order to land on the West, researchers have hypothesized that Lehi and his family may have traveled east through the Pacific Ocean to land on the west coast of who knows where. First Nephi chapter 17 says that after Nahum, they traveled eastward from that time forward. Now that could just mean they went east until they reached the seashore at Bountiful, or you could take that super literally and imply that they kept going east all the way through the water too. Regardless of which direction he took, it was a really long voyage either way, maybe lasting between 9 to 12-ish months. And the church doesn't take a position on Book of Mormon geography, but this west coast landing point is one of many reasons why some researchers have looked at the data points and the evidence and think that Mesoamerica could be a plausible place for the setting of the Book of Mormon.
Oh, that was so nice
Boom.
of her at the end to say could be. And it was either out of fear because she knew Rod Meldrum might write one of those letters like he did to the scripture
Look out.
department. You know what I'm saying? Actually, I have to say, sister, is it Rapley, Ed, or Ripley?
Probably Rapley. I
know,
think
it's
that's
not
probably
Ripley. I remember if it was Ripley.
Rapley's daughter. I would almost
Okay, cool.
guess.
Well, she's very nice.
She is very nice.
She is very nice.
They're good people. They're on, and honestly,
Yeah.
their Sister Rapley in particular is doing a great thing to try to bring the gospel to the younger generation.
I would agree. I enjoy her content.
Yeah.
I enjoy.
And
what
she was
she's
nice,
doing.
and she responded to me very politely
Yeah.
on Facebook. She actually is very amicable to an invite to come on the show because I think before Scripture Central picked her up, she was just crushing it and super enthusiastic about the gospel. And I think she was just making her own content. I don't think she was sponsored by Scripture Central at that point. I totally could be wrong, but I did invite her to come on, and I remember she basically just said something along the lines of like, "I'm really sick because I'm pregnant right now." I was like, "Oh,
no.
I was like, all right, girlfriend, you do you, take all the time you need." You know what I'm saying?
You have
So,
our sympathies.
Yeah, I was about to say, all of us are fathers in this room, and it's like, whoo, bless you, girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, awesome. So you then say your big trump card to the Mesoamerican argument, okay, is this Phoenician vessel. Right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and tell us what your counterpoint to this is, hopefully in the next 6 to 8 minutes. Go.
Okay, so very quickly, the idea of which direction Lehi went, one of the things that she apparently is either not aware of or I'm not sure how she would not know the research that we've done involving the time of the year that Lehi left. We know that Lehi, they gathered fruit and honey in abundance. They got aboard the ship and they left.
But
right?
before you continue, I can tell
We
you
talked about
exactly
that,
how she's not aware of your research. Because, dog, I've got a box. This is the book I just got 3 weeks ago from Jerry Grover, Calendars and Chronology of the Book of Mormon. This is going to take me a month. All right. Then you guys roll in here. You know what I'm saying? And I get all these other books.
Here.
We got your annotated copy of the Book of Mormon. And you know what? I just ordered the most important book of all, like 5 copies of the Book of Mormon unofficial Chat GPT translation for Gen Z. You know what I'm saying? So I'll tell you right now, I can empathize with my sister from another Mr. Rapley, who may not be aware of all your research, dog, because I haven't scratched the surface of all of mine yet. So anyway, keep going, man.
So for those who are not aware, there are 2 primary wind currents on the Oman Peninsula.
Okay.
You have basically in the spring and summer, the winds come from the south up towards the north and to the east, up into the Himalayan mountains. In the late summer and early fall, and then through winter, the winds change in what they call I think it's the eastern monsoons. Anyway,
Yeah, the eastern monsoons.
and then they come down out of the Himalayan mountains and they go down south and west. Along the east coast of Africa. The beautiful thing about the Book of Mormon, it tells us what season it was because they gathered fruit and honey in abundance. There's only fruit and honey in abundance on the Saudi Arabian Peninsula in the fall of the year, which tells you that it was the air currents that were coming down out of the Himalayas and going south and west.
Okay, so
if you're in a sailing ship,
Okay.
there's only one direction you're going to go. You're going to go south, and you're going to go west along the east coast of Africa. Now, there was a ship that actually tried to go the other direction. It's called the Jewel of Muscat, and it was actually an 1100 AD ancient ship reproduction.
Okay.
And that actually had the deep keel and had the not square sails and so forth. And they tried their absolute best. If you look up Jewel of Muscat, I think it might show you somewhere what their voyage did. But they were trying to go to Indonesia and show that you could actually get at least through the Indian Ocean, and they couldn't even get through the Indian Ocean without having to be literally dragged with ropes behind a powered ship.
Okay, because I'm just looking up some images.
That's never been done in a sailing ship before.
Okay, so I'm looking at some images right now, and just so the people at home know, that little star right there on the Arabian Peninsula, that's not the land bountiful, but that's Oman. That's
close enough.
Yeah, I was about to say that's close enough that let's just use that star as an example. So the way that these arrows are traveling right now up the east coast of Africa across the Arabian Peninsula towards India, you say that's the fall monsoon season or the summer monsoon?
That's the spring and summer.
Yeah.
That's the spring and summer.
Yeah,
okay.
correct.
And then there's a shift, which in this graph you see right here, is the white arrows, where all of a sudden now it shifts during the fall with the blue and the white arrows and actually goes downward. And then there's finally another graph right here that shows winter monsoon season. All of the winds are going down the coast of the east coast of Africa. Meanwhile, in the summer season, they're going up. So you're saying if this actually happened in fall or winter, they would be pushed down the coast.
Right. And we know this actually as a fact because the Phoenicia expedition, the Phoenicia ship actually left in October, in the month of October. So it was during that time when you had fruit and honey in abundance and were blown before the winds. They didn't go contrary to the winds. So if the fall of the year, unless you're basically willing to say that basically God changed all the currents of the earth to accommodate Nehi and his people, which I have no problem. That's possible, right? But there's no need to even do that if they go down the east coast of Africa. And if they did, instead of being like she was talking about a 9 to 12 month voyage, using the actual what's literally been done. So this is not even speculation. This has actually been done in a 600 BC replica ship. It only took 6 months. Okay. And they could have picked up food and supplies anywhere down along the east coast of Africa while they were doing it. The only section of the voyage that would have been a long one that they couldn't get supplies was when they went from the southern tip of Africa up to essentially Cuba. And that took, I think it was like 70 days. So about 2.5 months.
Okay. So now here's my question for you. Just like I was kind of joking and saying, I don't know if I necessarily believe this idea that they left Oman and then had to dodge the Indian Peninsula and all of the islands above Malaysia and the Philippines and Papua New Guinea and Australia, just to then do a voyage across the longest and worst open ocean, over Easter Island and past the Hawaiian Islands just to make it to, California or wherever. Just like that's hard for me to believe that they were playing Frogger and dodging all those islands. It's kind of hard for me to believe as well if I just Google the Caribbean, and I'm just pulling up a map right now. Okay.
Yeah.
But here's a map of the Caribbean. Okay. Mm-hmm. If I'm just looking at a map of the Caribbean, okay, and this is a postcard, and it's giving me the backside of the postcard. That's funny. This is an eBay postcard. This is hilarious. We're eBay, what up? You know what I'm saying? But how am I supposed to believe? I could see that they could easily cross from the west coast of Africa to somewhere in the New World, because people don't realize how actually close the west coast of Africa is to like Brazil and to Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago and all those islands and so on and so forth. But now, just like it's hard for me to believe they were dodging the islands above Australia, it's hard for me to believe that some ship would dodge Cuba, Haiti, would dodge Trinidad and Tobago, the Bahamas, the Cayman Islands, and would have to like go through that minefield just to slip in to the underside. If I pull it up on Google Maps, just to slip into the underside of the coast of Florida. Like, doesn't that also kind of seem just kind of equally as unbelievable that they would dodge literally the Turks and Caicos, the Bahamas, all of Cuba, the Dominican Republic, San Juan, Puerto Rico, the British Islands, the Florida Keys themselves, and they wouldn't bump into one of those islands, but instead they just go through those just to land on Clearwater Beach. Isn't that also just as improbable?
Well, the thing about it is that it never says that they never stopped. It never says, and we did sail forth without stopping until we reached the promised land.
Oh, but come on, you don't think they would have mentioned like, whoo, those first 6 months were kind of rough, but in month 7, we finally found land. You don't think they would have mentioned that, dog?
Bring the map up again for just a second there. Let me point out a couple things. So if they were coming, and if you actually take a look at the trajectory of the Phoenicia ship as it actually did it actually came up on the north end of all of those things. Yeah. So if you're on the north side of that, and then you have the currents there are going in a clockwise rotation. The northern Atlantic is a clockwise rotation. Okay. So if you follow kind of where hurricanes come in, they would literally have followed along the north side of all of those islands, Cuba and all that you're talking about, and then end up right between those two and the actual the tip of Florida and into the Gulf of Mexico.
Kind of shows a little bit of that.
Okay, so I just looked up right now. Here's a map of all of the currents, and yes, you're right. If you're going to go from over Australia to make it to the west coast of the United States of America, you're going against two of the most powerful currents in the Pacific. Whereas if you're trying to go from the west coast of Africa and cross to the New World by Florida, you're going with every current.
Every single current in that area favors a ship to land in North America. Like if you leave the northwest corner of Africa and you just take your ship and you put it out there, or let's say you get a bottle and you just drop a bottle with the message and you drop it in the ocean, it will arrive in North America in like what, 28 days, 30 something days.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And the thing is where it's going to land is going to be on the north end of the north side of Cuba and the north side of all those islands. That's where those currents come in.
Well, I got to tell you, if you look at these maps right here, there's the North Equatorial Current, the Equatorial Counter Current, the Canary Current from the Canary Islands, the Caribbean Current, the Guyana Current, so on and so forth. That's pretty impressive. So that would be helping you out. And these are very fast currents as well.
While you have that map up for just a second, go ahead and put that back up, because that's actually what happened to, not that map, this is the previous one.
The other one.
That one. So if you take a look at the bottom right-hand corner of that, that's one of the currents that the Philip Beale ship, the Phoenicia, actually sailed up in. Now, they weren't that close to the Africa. They were coming up actually from the kind of the center bottom red portion there. I can't quite see that very well.
Yeah.
And then they would go up into the Florida area. But then they continued on up the east coast of America and then all the way clear up into the north part and then came back down
And
to the Rock of Gibraltar and across the Mediterranean, and actually landed in Lebanon, and it was just a
look
week
at
less
these
than
warm
1
water
year.
currents. Hold on. Look at these warm water currents from the bottom right screen, which is basically pointing at the tip of Africa that they would have had to come around. There's this current that comes all the way right up below Cuba and Haiti and Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic,
right in,
and slips them right into the backside of Florida. Look,
and what you have to understand is that what Captain Philip Beale, who captained the Phoenician ship, his entire goal was to circumnavigate Africa, right? And so he was trying to go back around to the top of Africa, and so when he got to that part of the current, and he tried to navigate his ship to go back to the northwest corner of Africa, he couldn't. He couldn't do it because those currents were so strong that it slipped him 3 days from making land in North America.
Yeah. But what's also, it kind of depends on where he ends up when he gets over to the Americas, essentially. If he's a little bit further to the east when he enters it and he goes into that northern Atlantic there, then he would end up on the north side of those islands. If he came in that one was showing, and he slips in there. But either way, both of them end up taking him into that.
Well, I think you guys all actually missed the boat because this, no pun intended, this nature map by the publication Nature shows that yes, though it will pass by the bottom of Florida, it keeps going Gulf Stream up the coast of the Americas until finally, boom shakalaka, it actually crosses the ocean and ends up back towards the top of Iceland and the British Isles. So I think you guys are actually all wrong. I reject the Heartland model, and I now espouse the British Isles Iceland model. There is a lost civilization of Lamanites somewhere hanging around off of some Scottish island, and there's a narrow neck of land.
Stonehenge.
I now espouse the Stonehenge model, and we're going to call it the Gulf Stream Truther Movement. All right, and that's where we're going to say they land. Okay,
that's awesome.
So is there anything we missed before Ed? Yeah, anything we missed?
Throw something in there, brother.
Well, I just think this is really fascinating in general. I'd like to repeat what everybody's been saying the last several episodes, that there's no reason to bicker about specifically where anyone landed. There's, 3 or 10 or 100 or 1,000 faithful answers to everything in the gospel of Jesus Christ, first and foremost, but the Book of Mormon. And the Antichrist will choose one or two things and try to destroy everyone's testimonies when there's hundreds and thousands of things not to do that.
So did you just call me an Antichrist?
No. If I misspoke, I apologize.
So this is what's interesting. I want to read this right here. The Phoenician Ship Expedition, Wikipedia, as called by Tucker Carlson, the most CIA-controlled website in America, which I thought was funny. But from Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia, the Phoenician Ship Expedition is a recreation of a 6th century BCE Phoenician voyage conceived by Philip Beale. That's the captain that you spoke about earlier, a British sailor, adventurer, and expedition leader. Okay. And the replica of an ancient Phoenician ship departed from Syria in August 2008, sailed through the Suez Canal around the Horn of Africa, which is that bottom,
that's the top.
The Horn of Africa is the east coast of the African continent. Yes, you're right. Sorry. And up the west coast of Africa through the Strait of Gibraltar and across the Mediterranean to return to Syria. It reached South Africa in 2010, and it was built. This is interesting. It's 20 meters long. It was constructed at Arwad Island, the site of an ancient Phoenician city-state just off the Syrian coast, by Syrian shipwright Khalid Hamoud, using traditional methods. And look, you guys made it into the bottom of the Wikipedia article where it says purchased by Latter-day Saints. The ship has been purchased by members of the Latter-day Saint movement with the intent of restoring it and setting it up as a visitor center in Iowa, US. Their website says, we will unveil the magnificence of this historic ship. Where is it right now, my man? Where is this beautiful vessel?
You missed a couple sentences there where it says the heartland of America. America.
Oh, okay. It says, we will unveil the magnificence of a historic ship that goes back 2,600 years from the time when Mulek and his people traveled from Jerusalem to the heartland of America. Oh, you had to get that in there, didn't you, brother?
It's the chunky soup, baby.
It's the chunky Campbell's soup.
Came
all
here
right?
for chunky soup.
So where is this Phoenicia expedition boat now, man? I mean, it's a beautiful rig. Where is it now?
One word, Zarahemla.
Oh, really? Can we board it? Can we just like sail down the Mississippi or
Well,
up the Mississippi?
as a matter of fact, so the Heartland Research Group is in the middle of restoring this ship right now in Montrose, Iowa, and it's a huge feat. And so they're actually looking for people to come and help. And
Well, what's wrong with
continue.
it?
Well, that's a long story. When
You tell a quick one?
What, did it
version?
sink? Did like terrorists blow
yes,
it up? And like,
it did, and then it rose again. And so what? So the short story is,
Well, you sound like you're hiding something.
Tell
Like, did
about-
one of your friends do it?
we gotta tell you about how it got here.
Okay, well, tell us really fast, man.
go ahead, you say that part,
Okay,
and then
I'll
I'll.
do this as quickly as possible because after they did the first voyage and actually proved beyond any shadow of a doubt, you have to understand this is not just speculation. Lehi's ocean voyage from Saudi Arabian Peninsula to America has been done in a 600 BC ship. It's never been accomplished to go to Central America. They have nothing they can show that the Phoenician expedition do that. But then it did something else. We said,
Hold on, can I add a caveat?
Yeah.
What we're not saying is that this is the ship that took Lehi's family here. Okay, it's like Nephi was given a vision and revelation on how to build a ship, not in the manner of men. But what we are saying is that here's a Phoenician nation that was circumnavigating Africa and was using the seas, and these guys were like amazing maritime sailors. And this is contemporary to the time of Lehi. And so we have a ship in modern day 2020 is when this happened, 2019, that this ship was able to make it to North America. And that shows us that this is possible.
Yeah, I don't know.
This
You got to
is
give
possible.
yourself,
And
you
then
got to
it-
give these shipbuilders more credit because I saw the picture of Lehi. I saw the picture of Lehi.
hanging out there.
I don't know. That looks like it's got the curly Q in front. It's got the curly Q in front. So
it's actually a horse head.
It is a horse head right
pretty
there.
cool, yeah.
Like, looks like a Phoenician ship.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Anyway,
So
sorry.
back to that. So basically, after it sailed back to Lebanon and proved that the Phoenicians actually could make circumnavigations of Africa, then we had Philip Beale come to one of my big conferences, and he spoke about the whole thing and how. And he was unaware of the Book of Mormon prior to the voyage. After the voyage, and he was introduced to the Book of Mormon, he was like, "Yeah, this is really amazing because we didn't know that this is what was going to happen until after we actually got on the ship and actually did it. There's no way that Joseph Smith could have possibly known which direction they would have gone or about the wind currents or anything that was going on over there in Oman. Even today, that's there are not many people have been over there, right?" But then when he came over, we were so impressed with that. In our group, we get 6,000-7,000 people at our events, and so when he spoke, he said. We asked him, so what would it take to bring the ship to America? Could the Phoenicians come to America? So we actually helped him, and he got funding and so forth to actually have a Phoenicians to America expedition, in which we had my publisher Boyd Tuttle and other people were actually part of that, and they left from Carthage, Tunisia, which is actually one of the islands there, just off of Tunisia. There is the how do you pronounce that island then? Remember that?
Jerba.
Yeah, Jerba. The Tunisians say that right before the fall of Jerusalem, that there were Levite priests that left from the temple in Jerusalem and headed over and they sought refuge in Jerba. And we know from a DNA standpoint, which is one of my specialties, that's actually in fact it's a Jewish population. They have haplogroup X DNA type, and they're there. The Phoenicians then were the greatest seafaring people at the time, and then we have this thing about the Mulekites. How did the Mulekites get over here? We know that there was another voyage in the Book of Mormon, but how did they get here? Who did they come with? Did they build their own ships? Well, Mulek was little king. That's what Mulek means. And why wasn't he killed when Zedekiah's sons were all lined up in front of him after they sacked Jerusalem at 586 BC and took them all to Babylon as slaves? Then they took all of Zedekiah's male descendants, all of his sons, lined them all up, executed them all in front of him, and then put his eyes out. So the last thing he would ever see in this life is the death of his sons. And there's no historical evidence that Zedekiah had a son by the name of Mulek, but the Book of Mormon says that he did. There is now a lot of speculation, some speculation that maybe Mulek was actually not killed because he was still in vitro. His mother was still pregnant with him, and that King Zedekiah had her whisked away to get away from there. Would have been the most likely scenario would have been Phoenicians. Now, when we say Phoenicians, a lot of people go, well, who are those people? They're basically Israelites. Phoenicia is Lebanon, which is the Israel area, okay, the Levant area of Israel. And if they swept them away to Jerba with this, it's possible that this little king called Mulek would have ended up with the Phoenicians, and the Phoenicians then did they have the capability to come to America? So we asked Philip Beale, how about a voyage to America? This is the coolest thing. He said, yeah, I think we should try that.
Cool.
How long does it take to cross the Atlantic Ocean?
Okay.
And so they set up the voyage. They took off from Carthage, Tunisia. They sailed along the northern coast of Africa, past Tunisia and Libya, and then Morocco, out onto the Canary Islands. My friend Boyd Tuttle actually was with them for a portion of that voyage there, and then they set sail for America.
Yeah, and
America.
Yeah,
and in 36 days or 37 days later, they were making landfall on those islands down by Cuba. I think it was Dominican Republic where they first landed. Then they didn't have any problem, like you were talking about how it would be a problem to bounce around the islands. That's not a problem. Okay, because they went from Dominican Republic. They sailed up the east coast of Florida. They sailed around Florida to the other side and went up the west coast for a little bit. They came back around to basically Orlando. They were in a marina, and they were going, okay, we've done this voyage. Yeah. Now what? So they were kind of like, well, I don't think we can make this into a submarine, so we can't really show the Jaredite voyage.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay.
So it's done the 2 of the 3 voyages even possible in a Phoenician ship, and it's done both of them. Okay.
Successfely.
And then what happened?
Okay, but how do you guys have it? Let's get to the part where how do you guys have it?
So it was sitting in a slip for quite a while, and then that was getting expensive, so we had it moved out to a canal that somebody gave us the permission to do it there, and then a dang hurricane came along, knocked out the power for a week, the bilge pumps ended, and the ship sank in the canal. The Coast Guard says this ship is now a menace to other boats going up and down the canal. Either you get the ship out of the water and get it out of the way, or we will drag it out and we'll scuttle it in the ocean someplace and make it into an unnatural reef. Okay, so what happened is that Philip Beale had no other choice, so he ended up pulling it out of the water. Had it cut up with chainsaws, actually.
What?
Stuffed into
Isn't that crazy?
Stuffed into 2 big containers, and then one of the containers ended up being shipped over to Europe because there were museums over there that wanted to have the ship and put it on display, but unfortunately COVID shut that down, and so they said, we can't even have people come to our museum. We're not spending any money for a ship that we have to rebuild, so they backed out. Originally, I think he wanted several $1 million,
$3.5 million,
for us to buy the ship to put it on display, because this ship has done 2 of the 3 voyages of the Book of Mormon, right? And we want to be able to tell people the story of the Book of Mormon and say, look, here's the hard evidence that it not only can be done, it actually has been done. So what happened was that we ended up getting one of those containers, and then the other container got lost for quite a while, and we had that shipped back. Both containers have now made it safely to Zarahemla, which is directly across the river from Nauvoo, on a piece of property that we bought there some time ago, and then it's being reconstructed by Mike and Betty Red Ant LaFontaine, who are both Native Americans. And the Tunisians and the Native Americans have some amazing things. We just got back from a weekend that was just fabulous, where we met with the ambassador of Tunisia.
This is so big. This is so big, Carden, that the government of Tunisia invited us to go to Washington, D.C. to talk about this history because they recognize that the Phoenicians have a huge part in world history, but because the Romans took over Phoenicia and burned that city down, a lot of that history has been taken from them. And so when they realized what we were doing, they're like, whoa, so you're telling me that you can prove that the Phoenicians have a stake in all of this history? And we're like, yeah, because we have history that shows that people came to the Americas from that area.
Yeah.
Wow. And also, modern day Tunisia is the infamous ancient city of Carthage that famously invaded with all the elephant army, right?
Well, that, yeah.
No,
well,
that was Cartagena.
Yeah,
sorry. No, I'm sorry. That was, I apologize.
This is
Sorry.
Carthage.
Yeah.
Carthage. And but here's another fun fact.
Okay.
We interviewed a young lady by the name of Arish Bensassi, and she has an organization called Club Didon, which they're in charge of putting together archaeologists and anthropologists and helping create and produce research projects in Tunisia. Anyway, she told us about this island of Jerba that has predominant Jewish ties.
Okay.
They have a synagogue there that has been in operation for more than 2,000 years that have these amazing, beautiful mosaics, and they have part of the door of Solomon's temple.
Whoa.
There.
Cool.
In Jerba. And so not only that, she also mentioned that there's pilgrimages every year of several Jewish people that go to Jerba.
Well, thousands
of them.
Yeah.
Because of the history that they have of refuge in that island.
Oh, by the way, I looked it up, and yeah, I don't think I was wrong. Hold on. The war elephants of Carthage, right? That invaded. Wasn't there the famous, like, not Greek war? Come on, am I the only one that remembers this from ancient history?
Squirrel.
No, hold on.
To be honest, I'm not as familiar with
Carthage
this part of
war
Carthaginian
elephants.
history.
No, there's war elephants. Okay, here it was.
Although
the use of war elephants in the Western Mediterranean is most famously associated with the wars between Carthage and the Roman Republic.
Okay.
Yeah, the Carthaginians.
Yeah,
okay.
And so Carthage is in Tunisia,
Carthage is
right?
in now modern day Tunisia. Yes.
Okay, so I wasn't wrong.
You were right.
All right.
I'm just not as
there we
familiar
go. See,
Vindicated.
I'm not historically illiterate. You know? All right, cool.
Okay,
awesome.
pull up that map, though, again, of Tunisia, and you'll see where the island of Jerba is. It's kind of along the east coast and kind of towards the south. And it's kind of a big island. It's only just like a hop, skip, and a jump across. You have to blow up bigger than that.
Yeah, go down.
Okay, I'm pulling it up right here.
And you see right down there. Whoop, too far.
Scroll down.
Scroll down a little bit.
A little further, right there.
We're going.
It's the big island, not that one. The one south of that.
Go further south. That
There
way.
it is,
right
that
there.
one. And that's Jerba. That's the one that has the door of the Solomon's Temple and so forth. And they have one of the oldest
operating synagogue that has been operating for over 2,000 years.
I almost said mosque. Wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
So yeah. And that's where a lot of the Jews were taking refuge right before. I think that some of them got a clue from this guy by the name of Lehi when he had this dream and said that they were going to be destroyed by the Babylonians if they didn't repent. Some of them might have actually taken that serious and they actually got out of there before the Babylonians showed up.
And also,
we need to start writing our own apocryphal books, bro.
several people that live in Jerba. There's a particular name that they love so much that they name their children. What name was that?
Oh, it's spelled M-U-L-E-K.
That's right. What does that spell?
Really?
Mulek.
Okay, is there a history of that going back 2,000 years?
Yeah, that's a fairly common name there in Jerba, which is a bunch of Jews who immigrated from Jerusalem around 586 BC.
Wow! Holy smoke! Okay, I want to see more of that. That's amazing.
Okay, so if they did, then it's really fascinating to understand that if that's the case, then that makes sense why Mulek, who came over as the little king, and then we think, as the Heartland model geography is saying, is that Mulek basically he came over and he established what city of the Book of Mormon?
It was the city of the Mulekites, Zarahemla.
Yeah.
Yes.
The big time, the Zarahemla, right?
Yeah.
And the Nephites didn't find the Mulekites until probably about 400 or 500 years after they had arrived here.
And the language had been corrupted.
That's right. But they knew
their
they were from the
swords
same place.
cankered with time.
No, it was rust.
Oh, rust.
They were steel swords.
Yeah. Okay, awesome.
Okay, and so what we're thinking is that the Mississippi River also comes into position or play here when we're talking about the rivers, and that is the Mississippi River is a really interesting river in that because it's so big and so wide, and it actually goes against the air currents. So if you're in a sailing ship which is actually being blown by the winds, the Mississippi River is unique in that you can actually sail upstream in that river.
Oh, it's slow
It's
rolling enough.
It's like a slow lake moving down through the countryside, but the winds are faster going north because if you follow the natural currents, the winds are going north, and so you can actually sail up the Mississippi River. But how far can you sail? You can only sail up to what's now called the Des Moines Rapids, or what used to be called the Des Moines Rapids. They're no longer there. But the Des Moines Rapids, the river was only about 2.3 feet deep mean depth. In other words, a ship with a very low draft would not be able to get past that point.
You can almost walk that.
They could walk that back in the Joseph Smith days and in the Nephite days. This is the reason why anyway, there's so much that goes into this.
There's history of Joseph Smith taking his
But we believe that the Mulekites literally took their ship up the Mississippi River as far as they could go until they couldn't take the ship any further because it got too shallow. That's where they parked the ship, and that's where they established Zarahemla, which is where the Lord said in section 125 of the Doctrine and Covenants that actually that's where there's Zarahemla.
This is a seminary lesson right here.
So
I should have had in 2000 whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, okay,
so the Nephites were set up. It says the Mulekites were brought into the land northward, and the Nephites were brought into the land southward. So if they actually did sail their ship all the way up the Mississippi River, but the Nephites instead landed on the west coast of Florida. And it took them a long time to get up into the southern tip of the Appalachian Mountains, essentially Tennessee. And then after that, then they continued to go north. They would eventually got up there to Zarahemla. And the rivers is what makes it all work. Because if you have, for example, if you're going from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and you want to go to Zarahemla, and you know it's basically to the north, you're going to have to take the Tennessee River to the north until you get to the Ohio River. Then you have to make a left-hand turn on the Ohio River, go down to the Mississippi River, then make a right-hand turn. Yeah, take a right-hand turn and go up the Mississippi River until you get to Zarahemla. But they made a wrong turn one time when they sent a group of men up to the north to go find Zarahemla, and they got lost, and they went into a land of many waters, and they talked about large seas, or basically large lakes, essentially. If they took the wrong turn, and instead of turning left when they hit the Ohio, if they turned right on the Ohio, they would have followed the Ohio River all the way up into the Great Lakes, up to basically, almost to the land Cumorah, the Cumorah area land, or the land of that area, found the plates that the Jaredites left up there. And they didn't have any problem getting back because all you got to do is follow the rivers back down to the land of Nephi.
Okay.
So all of a sudden it starts to explain all of these kinds of things, which are just so fascinating when you do a deep dive in the Book of Mormon. Let me tell you, I have found that the more I study and the more that you go through this, the more it actually testifies that this is a real history of real people and real places. And you don't need a Narnia map, and you don't need a bunch of speculations about animals and plants, and you don't need to speculate about how whirlwinds aren't whirlwinds, and you don't have to speculate about volcanoes that are never mentioned in the Book of Mormon. You don't have to speculate about a civilization that was already existing long before the Levites got there. And then you have archaeology that matches everything up. And when you put it all together in a nice package and put a bow on top of it, everything points to the Heartland model of geography for the book.
All right, okay. So that sailing up the Mississippi to the Des Moines Rapids, I think, and this Phoenician expedition is the most compelling argument you've made thus far. For this and more, first off, let's keep the conversation going in the comments below. For this and more, check us out at WardRadio.
I just feel so good.